Hey folks, welcome to Trust in the Process. This is a podcast with myself, Travis Fritz, owner and brewer at Old Nation. Today, I have the honor of talking to Kim Collins, who's the owner and head brewer at Guardian Brewing. And Kim and I have never met. So this is a really great opportunity to get inside the head of someone who has been making a lot of waves in the brewing industry here in Michigan, is already deeply entrenched, certainly more than I am, in the brewing community here in Michigan. So I'm really interested to get your perspective on Michigan, on states outside of Michigan, places that you've worked, Kim, and I'm so thankful that you came on to spend your Wednesday morning with us. Thank you. Thanks
for having me.
Yeah.
And thanks for that Rockin' Pride shirt that you and Tiff sent last year.
Yeah, I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy you got it.
Yeah.
And in the, an auspicious month to be sending those back and forth this month.
Yeah.
So here we are now talking for the first time, Kim.
Yes.
You are at Guardian Brewing. Can you give everyone, all five people who might be listening to this in the future, can you give them kind of the rundown, the pitch of Guardian Brewing so that I don't mess it up?
Okay, so I'll do a shorter elevator. Guardian Brewing Company is the only 100% queer and women-owned brewery in Michigan. We've been open since December 2018. I personally have been brewing professionally for 10 years, so this baby's been like in the oven forever. We have a 6,000 square foot like brewery area, which includes like offices and walk-in and stuff, which is a lot of space. We can get into that if you want later. We have a 1,200 square foot restaurant, a 3,500 square foot patio. I like numbers, but past that, you walk in and everything is like light and airy and warm and vibrant. Like we definitely didn't want to go, no offense for the folks that, pioneered the industrial look. I chose to go the opposite direction. So everything's like neutral tones and wood and like crazy concert posters and signed guitars. Like we love live music and we name all of our beers after creatures and lore and things that may or may not exist, because if you're not having fun, what the heck are you doing in the brewing industry? Like you can do anything else that's fun. I can say it's fun all the time, but if you're not at least like making an effort to have some fun, you're missing out. And then our whole thing is like everyone's welcome at Guardian. So we have huge array of food available, from meat to vegan and vegetarian, gluten-free options. And then I make 22 taps of beer because I can't decide. They're all my favorite babies. Anything from like, I really like lower alcohol stuff, but we have some higher stuff on all the time too. Just got into seltzers, my face is wincing, because I believe in inclusivity. We're not like canning them or anything. I just want people to have options when they come to the restaurant. And we do like markets and trivia and lots of things for the community. We just want to be that third space.
That is fantastic. With regard then to the beer that you're brewing there, I understand the perspective because I share it and have for many years that, one of the most awkward I think it's a secret maybe among brewers. It's okay that folks don't know, but one of the most awkward questions you can be asked as a brewer is not what is your favorite beer, but what is your favorite beer that you make, right?
It's awful.
So Kim Collins, what is your favorite beer that you make?
Thank you, Travis.
What is your favorite beer to
make? Well, that's a totally different question. I was going to go with, if the beer was on every day, what beer would I drink? Because it's kind of the style that I love the most. And that would be, we make an English pale with coffee and then just like a pinch of cacao nibs. So it tastes like coffee. So it's a light colored coffee ale, but it's not a blonde. It's an English pale. So it has a little more body, a little more like, I don't want to say bitterness, but hop presence. So a little bit more herbaliness to it.
So I've always added coffee cold in the fermenter. Is that what you're doing too?
Yeah, we do it like we don't filter our beer, but I also don't want to screw up my yeast cropping. And so I had somebody weld D-rings on the inside of my dry hop port caps. And so we hang stainless steel chains inside our tanks. So pretty much we're like hanging huge bags of ground coffee in there, or fruit or hops, or we don't just dump our hops in. Like everything gets bagged when it goes in, and so we get really good yeast. Like this is a nerdy podcast, right? Like we get
no, it's nerd. Yeah,
awesome yeast cropping because of it. There's no like freaking juniper berries in my yeast. Like nobody wants that. That just clogs everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So hanging bags of hops in the dry hop phase, I'm familiar.
Yep.
Of course, the world has changed, and it's not the late 90s anymore. But early on in my career, the folks that I knew that did that mostly were English style brewers or actual English brewers. In your journey to where you are now, are there any specific disciplines that you focused on in the past, because the places that you were working were focused on a particular discipline, or is it just kind of good ideas come and bad ideas don't stay?
Well, it's always that, but
right.
I think that a lot of my like barrel aging love comes from Epic, Epic Brewing in Denver. So I was their first brewer that they hired when they moved. Well, not when they moved, but they opened the second location in Denver. And so I learned everything about barrel aging from them, and blending fruit in barrels and like second fermentations. And I mean, but I like to do lower alcohol stuff too, which I know a lot of people are real worried about doing, and it's turned out super well. Yeah. So like there's that, but then past that, I like equally super traditional beer, and then really odd combinations of things in beer, but really it's just flavors. So we like to deconstruct things. Like right now we have Dutch Mafia on, which is our stroopwafel cream ale. Right? So the stroopwafels are awesome. So we have a great cream ale base that's super flexible, and we do a few, maybe 5 beers a year off of that, like just really different things that you wouldn't think came from a similar beer. But it's like graham crackers and honey and vanilla and a little bit of lactose, not a crazy amount. Like I like to make these beers drinkable by the pint.
Good. Yes. Good.
Yes.
Good.
You could come, and it is one of our sweeter beers, but it's not so sweet that you couldn't even drink 2 pints of it. Of course you could.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So when you're working at Epic, you're in Denver, so you're in what is, in my perspective, kind of a more established.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to talk about this, right? Because it's all craft beer, so it's all new in the perspective.
Oh my God, though, I go there now, and like I don't know how they got the rest of the equipment in there.
Right.
Like, that place is packed. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I guess, and not just Epic, but it's interesting, I think, for folks who are just interested in craft beer in Michigan and haven't spent a lot of time in states like Colorado or California or the Pacific Northwest, to have folks kind of that have, like you, go into talking about what the difference in the perspective of the consumer is, what then therefore the difference in the perspective of the brewers is. In my experience, it is a different community. It's not completely different, but there are interesting differences in the community in Colorado than in Michigan of brewers about brewing beer. And I wonder what your experience was, and if you could talk a little bit about that.
I love that guild, and I love the passion and the camaraderie of that guild. Literally, you do not need to own or even brew. Like you can just get connected with folks that work in breweries, and we're all kind of looking out for each other, and you can give away beer for free there, which is just a different law than here. So pretty much like if you are a brewer and or somebody that works at a brewery and can prove it otherwise, like especially if you're trading beer, you can go to all these other establishments and just kind of trade beer back and forth really openly. Like that's just what people do. It's constantly like sharing beer and bringing it to each other. They have this great their festival called the Brewers Rendezvous in Salida in the summer, and they do what's called the Brewer's Belt. And so every year they have a theme. So, and you don't have to participate, but if you want to, it's, like a small batch of something that you'll make. So one of the themes one year was Centennial State, because they are the Centennial State. So of course, Centennial hops but you can do whatever you want with it. And so that somebody made a Saison, somebody made, all the hoppier beers.
Yeah.
varieties. Like, but whoever's like most creative and it's most delicious wins. And I won my first year working for a 3-barrel brewery in Golden. Crazy. That
was Coors, right? That's the 3-barrel brewery in Golden.
Yeah, right. It was right across the street from Coors. Right across the street from Coors, and those boys came and drank my beer after work. So I think that's cool. I'm like, I love those guys. They're great. Really supportive of the industry. But the theme was 38 because they're the 38th state as well. And so the beer had to be 3.8% ABV, which is really low to make something that's like also delicious. So I made a wit beer, and it was called Go Wit It. And my baby brewer self won. It's so crazy. So, and it was fun because every year it was something really different. And like, if you didn't win, who didn't care? Like, it was you against all of your friends. So it's kind of like what I would think a dream homebrew club would be, but amongst professional brewers, like all that camaraderie plus like high quality brewing.
Yeah.
And then just like all sorts of competition. But like we would collaborate, like they have Collaboration Fest out there, a whole festival dedicated to collaborations. Like they're just so involved is the short of it. And everyone is so close. And like, if you need anything, there's, an entire guild of people. And so that's why as soon as we got to Michigan, I wanted to get involved with our guild, because I think that we are younger. Well, I know that we are younger factually, but I think that we're moving in that direction, and it's really exciting.
Yeah, and certainly the guild has been a force in Michigan brewing for more than 20 years. I wonder. So let me even back up a little bit farther. I guess you were working as a professor, I think, before you became a brewer. Or we talked about this a little bit. Yes. I've read a lot about you online, and we didn't speak. So I apologize if I'm getting.
No, I always cringe at the word professor because I only have a master's degree. But yes, I was a college instructor, I'll say.
You were a college instructor. Fair enough.
Yes, I was.
Where was this?
Indiana University, and then Metropolitan State University of Denver.
Okay. Yeah. And your career path then as a brewer began in Denver or somewhere else?
I was helping run. I was the assistant director for the outdoor center at Indiana. Teaching was part of that. And I knew that I was ready to take the next step in something. And so I took the certified beer server exam online during my workday and passed it just like straight off the bat. I'm like, okay, so maybe this beer thing. And then I started looking for courses, and I signed up for the MBAA brewing and malting course.
Cool.
That was the beginning while I was in Indiana, but then we knew we were moving to Denver. So for that, somewhere in the area.
Okay. So this was.
I knew it had to begin out there somewhere, but being a person that has a lot of schooling, I'm like, okay, so maybe I believe that both are important. And if you have both, it's more helpful.
No
Especially
question.
as a woman, like who the hell's going to hire me if I don't show them that I'm serious? Like I'm not some guy just walking in like, oh, I know these 10 people from the local homebrew club. I know nobody. So I had to make myself look amazing on paper.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I believe you. I think going into Colorado and having had that education, then before you moved, it seems like some kind of kismet, right? Because you're sort of moving into the epicenter with this prepared, right? So You're setting yourself up for your own luck, right? You're prepared and you're giving yourself opportunity.
Yes.
And so I know what I read had a lot to do with your goals with regard to inclusivity and equity and equality and all of those kind of things with regard to your brewing career. And I want to talk to you about that. I also want to talk to you about your journey as a professional brewer, and just how that affected you, and what your experience was in terms of learning that craft. And I know for myself, after my own education, I came back and realized how much I didn't know, and I wonder how that was for you.
Yeah, so I went to that MBAA course in Madison, and it was awesome, but it hurt my head. Like, I'm a smart girl. Like, it just hurt. Like, I studied social science, so studying like the chemistry and microbiology and stuff. So I was like, oh man, like in some ways, my beer has just enough to do with science to make it clean and way more creativity to make it delicious. And somewhere in there, we like get it right. But I came in, I say in like the old school way, because you can really go to school, like 4-year school for brewing now. So I know I used to teach for KVCC here, Kalamazoo Valley Community College, but there's so many places that you can go to school, and that was not the case back in like 2011, 2012. So I was in that course because I don't know, I have a tough time sitting still and doing one thing. So like, this is good that we're here now. Like I'm just here with you, but I'm in that course, and I applied for all these jobs, and they're like, you don't have any experience. And I was like, yes, I know. Like I absolutely, like I am not.
That's why I'm here, buddy.
Unaware of that fact, Captain Obvious. Like I got it. But one of the guys like, I can't hire you, but come talk to me when you're back in town. And I was like, yes, like that's
something.
So that's my friend Eric Rohde, who used to be at Tommyknocker Brewing in Idaho Springs, which is we were in Golden on the foothill, like the first foothill outside of Denver. So it's probably 25 minutes away. It was super close. So I went in to go see him, and I was like, hi, I'm Kim. I want to be your intern. And he's like, we don't do interns. And I was like, I want to be your apprentice.
You don't have to pay me much is what I'm saying.
Like, is it semantics that you're worried about? I was like, I just want to be a brewer. Like, please, like somebody give me a shot. And yeah, I didn't even have to say all those pleases. And he's just like, we'll show up tomorrow at 5 a.m. Like you can brew with Jim. So right. Jim McCann is still there, still rocking. I'm like, he's a great brewer. He's a really kind guy. He's a gentle guy. I'm like, sorry, Jim. Now the world knows. I'm like, just a really good dude. So I worked with like a bunch of wonderful, thoughtful, respectful men there. And it was sweet. It was a perfect beginning. I got really lucky. Once I started driving the forklift, they had to put me on payroll though.
Word. Yeah.
Yeah. So $9 an hour. Woo!
Hey man, that's 9 more than you were making.
Yeah. That's 9 more than 0. I was in. So I knew like once my claw was in, like I was done. It was my first day that I knew was going to be a make break. We needed to take all the specialty grains and walk them up a long flight of stairs. Old, like dipping wood stairs. Like the building was like hundreds of years old. It was beautiful. But you have to walk all the specialty grains up. They just don't have any way to get it up. Whereas they have a silo for their base malt. And so the first bag, toss it over the shoulder, pulled all the muscles in my ribs. And like, I'm a big girl and I have strong shoulders, but like, whew, I didn't say a word. I just walked that grain right up and dropped it off and did it again like 9 more times.
Yeah.
So I knew this was it. Like, it was a lot of cleaning. It was a lot of moving stuff around, but it was still interesting to me. And I mean, if you don't love that part, which is what I tell every person that shadows with me or assists, I was like, if you don't like any part of this process, go find something else to do, because you're not going to get anybody else to do it for you until like 20 years into your career. So
Yep.
Yeah, right.
100%.
Yeah.
So you begin brewing, and when did I think it's true for anyone who starts at a brewer that there's a period of time as a brewer that there's a period of time in which you are working and not responsible for really making any decisions about what it is that you are making, right?
Oh yeah,
which is good. I think that's true in any trade, and it's true in brewing. I think if you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. So when was the point then that you can kind of, if you think back, you can identify and say, okay, this is when I had real impactful input, and what was that input? What was it? And also, what was it like for you to have it? How did that change your perspective, if any, if at all?
So I had like a little puff of it. So after Tommyknocker, I worked for Boulder Beer. So RIP Boulder Beer. Old, scary, haunted ass building. I'm like, oh my God, that place was creepy as get out. But anyway, on Friday, so haunted. So on Fridays, we used to brew like 1 barrel beers. They had literally like a big metal barrel, and that was our pilot system. And we would do that. And they're like, it's your turn to brew. And like, I have never made a professional recipe or like anything more than like a 5-gallon dried malt extract recipe at the time.
Oh, good. You're ready.
so ready. They're like, make the beer. And I was like, if I don't do this right, like these boys are going to be even like meaner to me than they are right now. Like, okay, I got to get this right. So I did a double IPA, dry hopped with mosaic and juniper berries. And I think it might have had like glacier in there too or something at the time. But that's become the Nessie. That was my first professional recipe, is now our double IPA that people are like, I'll be brewing later today. And they're like, oh my God, don't run out of Nessie. Like it's that beer.
So this is
the first time that I got to like make something served in the pub that they weren't like, oh, that sounds awful. Like it was a great beer.
Yeah.
The first time, and then past that, I was working at Epic Brewing, and I was friends with the 3 Barrel Brewery owners in Golden for barrels and bottles at the time. And the owners were like, hey, we need a head brewer. And I was like, oh, like I do want to open my own brewery. And this is the most logical, like next step. At this point, I was calling myself the whore of the Front Range, because this was my 5th brewery that I'd be working for in 5 years.
For men, they call that being a journeyman.
Oh, great. Well, how nice that must be for you.
I think for women too, by the way.
Yeah. How nice that must be. No, I'd get interviews and they're like, are you a job hopper? And I'm like, no, I want to open my own brewery. Like I'm seeking these like specific experiences so that I'm going to be a great brewer. Like we thought we were going to be in Colorado. I'm like, I'll be brewing right by you. Like I will be your peer. Yay. Yeah. So anyway, they hired me as their head brewer. And then I started making all the decisions after having made none of the decisions at all ever.
How did that feel?
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. But I'm happy that the first like month that I was there, I had convinced them to put in glycol, because they didn't have glycol before this.
Holy balls. Wow.
No glycol. They had a cool bot and a cooler with no ventilation. And I walked in one day and passed out.
I don't know what
all the CO2 was in there. Like, oh my God, it almost killed me. So I was like, we need to talk about how I almost died today. Let's talk about that.
But more importantly, let's be good to the beer, guys. That's
right. Yeah. So we got that brewery, and it's great because I've seen pictures of it since I left, and it still looks the same way. I'm like, yeah, I did a good setup. So it was nice to have a little space, and they only gave me like 5 taps out of their like, shoot, they had so many, 25 taps, 30 taps
of beer brewed there.
Of beer brewed there. They only gave me like 5 taps, which is probably a blessing. I was complaining at the end, but in the beginning, to put out 5 beers that were like properly carbonated, man, that was so hard for me in the beginning. I don't know why.
No, how did you even do that with no glycol? You were priming them, I guess?
No, I had to, that first month was all planning and cleaning and recocking and ripping stuff out, and they put the glycol in, then I started brewing.
Got it.
So they're a pub, which means different things over there. So they had 20 taps of other people's beer and 5 taps of their own beer, like 20 wine taps. Like that place was so much stuff in it. So I had a whole month to attempt to get the brewery to where a professional brewery should be in my mind, which obviously that worked out. So yay. Good. And get my recipes together and that sort of stuff. So we just hit the ground running.
Do you remember your starting lineup, your first 5?
I do. I think I at least remember 3 of them. So one of them was called Piney the First. So it was a Chinook Pale.
Okay, makes sense.
Yep. Piney the First. Juniperous. Again, that IPA popped up again, the double IPA with juniper berries.
This is what would become Nessie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, why not use other people's money to get your recipes right? Like, that's just smart. And they get the benefit off of the deliciousness.
100%.
That's what I tell my brewers. I'm like, what do you got? I'm going to keep it. So don't give me your like AA game, but like, let's work this out. Like, you can workshop your beer here. I think it's awesome.
Look, take it with you. All you got to do is change the name, right? I mean,
you can take it with you for sure. Or you can I never gave anybody the final recipe. I always gave them one derivation. You can hand somebody your mac and cheese recipe and they'll never make it. Like, they never make it. Like, how long was the sparge? How hot was it? Like, there's 1,000 things that. Anyway, so double IPA, pale ale, and there was Go With It, that wit beer.
Wit beer?
3.8% wit beer. And there was one more. It's probably like a wheat or a porter. It's probably Sinful, so cinnamon porter.
Yum.
That was one of the early ones that I made.
Yum.
Good fun.
Okay, we're talking about porter. Let me just ask you a brewer question.
Yeah.
You are, dark malts, character malts, high carbon malts, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite? What do you like the most?
I
understand different different songs for different days.
I think I like chocolate malt most, quickly followed by roasted malt, because chocolate has roasted, but it has like that softness to it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep.
Have you ever used Simpson's chocolate malt?
All the time.
I love Simpson's chocolate malt.
So in all of our dark beers, you'll find it.
I love it. It's the best. You look at a handful and it's so irregular. It doesn't make any sense.
Oh, I know. It's like brown, black, like
right.
Black, kind of not. Oh, that one didn't get toasted.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Unless you use it, you cannot understand the power of Simpson's chocolate malt, man. Looking at it, you're like, what is this garbage? Crisp is all the same color. Yes.
So I've had to like sub those out over the past couple of years because BSG ran out, or pandemic. I'm like, is this the same?
Yeah. All right. Okay. So let's now that we're off on this tangent, let's talk about pale malt, right? I am a gigantic fan. See, this is the thing. You've developed it. I'm sure I've developed it over the last 20 years. I have really particular, like, for example, when it comes to pale malt, obviously any pale malt will do for some beers, right? But for beers like barley wine, or particularly, if I'm going to use Fuggle hops, let's say, in a pale ale, I want to make it English as hell, right? Yep. Then for me, it's crisp Maris Otter. I think it's really difficult. Crisps, torrefied wheat, and Maris Otter are two of the most fantastic malts for me that I've ever used. And I wonder if you have any sleepers like that.
I don't know how I got started. Well, Maris Otter was that first double IPA that I made. They're like, try this malt. It's called Maris Otter. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, it was new then. And not new to the Americans. So my base malts are like Pilsner, like Weyermann Pilsner. I am picky about it. I like how grainy it is. I think it has a very specific flavor. It's delicious. Yeah. Weyermann Pilsner, Simpson's Golden Promise.
Yes.
Because it's super yellow. Like it just picks off this like golden, gorgeous yellow color. So like Nahual, that chocolate coffee pale I was talking about, uses Simpson's. And I can tell when it's poured, it's like sunshine. It's beautiful. Yeah. And then Maris Otter I use in a lot of beers. Absolutely. Okay. And then Rar Two-Row, like Rar Pale Two-Row. The only thing that kills me about it, though, and I feel like some days I could do better, is every time I open the bag, like 10% of it's already smashed. And I was like, you do this? And it comes from Minnesota, and the stuff I get from like England and Scotland is like perfect. There's not a smashed barley in the whole bag.
Well, this is not an interview for me, but I will tell you that I have a very complicated history with RAR also, and it has to do with that specifically. And it was functionally, look, man, I know who you're selling malt to. I know I get the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah,
right? But I can't keep paying full price for 5 pounds of dust, guys. It's killing me, right? But
I'm afraid of like changing those recipes. Like I'm at this point, I want to use more local malt. We've been using a little bit of local hops here and there, like when we can afford them and find them. I want to use more local malt, but I don't want to change. Like I don't want to mess up the customer experience that we've created. So it's going to be like newer recipes, I think. So we're doing it with that Grand Cru Ale for the Guild this summer. We're making it with Berserk and working with Great Lakes malting. So
okay, good. I have to say we early on did a lot of work with local maltsters, and this is early on in Old Nation. So recently in my career, but like 7 years ago, where the malt houses weren't set up for consistency. They weren't really set up for the volume that we have now. There have been a lot of changes. And I am certainly not poo-pooing local malt, but that was the experience that I had then. And I have to admit to a little reticence to using local malt at this point, but I'm ready to be pitched, and I'd love to hear what your experience is with it.
It was great in Colorado. They had it modified further, I think is the best way of putting it. Like the way that they were processing their malt, I think it's maybe because of where it's grown. Like it's weird that we're growing malt here, I think, in a way, because I think of it more as like a fruit hop, grape. I don't know anything about ag. I'm just surprised that malt is grown here. So I think that's great.
Yep.
But I've noticed that it's not as modified. And so my efficiency has been lower, and I didn't know that my first couple times out. So surprise, your recipe is not what you thought it was going to be. And you can't, you can throw something there, but it changes it. Like you can't fix it at that point.
No take backsies once it's out of the kettle.
Right. So I'm looking for things that are more modified.
Right. Well, and I know. I mean, I'm speaking in front of maltsters and hop growers here in Michigan at Michigan State later this early next month, and I'm doing as much research as I can to see how it's developed since the last time I kind of dipped my toes into it. I stay up on hops, but my family used to grow Barca, the Barca strain of barley in the thumb of Michigan. For Stroh's, who had its own malt house here in Michigan as well a long time ago. So, it's possible to grow good barley here, but it all got taken over by sugar beets and soy 70 years ago. So, it's a whole, like you say, the whole thing from ag all the way through process is kind of new again. And it's, it's scary as a brewer to think about, but it's also, it's clearly crucial that we support that industry here in Michigan to support ourselves, I think.
All day and everywhere. I'm like, just huge support and education needs to happen so that it can be a great relationship and we can all, thrive in it. I'm like, it'd be nice if everyone was thriving because we're nowhere near there. And they are. No. I don't think they are either.
Well, and prospects are looking weird for breweries and people kind of getting in, particularly to distribution now. And you've been around for a long time, doing this for a long time. I wonder, the breadth of experience you have and what perspective that brings. What then, do you think your perspective is on where we are now as brewers relative to the consumer and their changing tastes or their firm tastes? And what are your thoughts about where we might end up? And by the way, I do this to everybody, and we're just spitballing here. This is not.
It's good. It's good. I think that consumers just want it. It's almost like we have like two halves of our brain, right? Like right and left, or left and right, or whatever, without any of the adjectives related to them. But consumers want your flagships. They want things that are like proven and consistent, and like, man, good luck if you use yeast that when cropped that's a little bit darker than the other yeast that makes your beer darker. They freak out. So consistency. And then on the other hand, they want the different. And the different can be like these new native wines that speciation's making, or seltzers, or like pickle beer, or like they want the weird, the different, the culinary. Is how I think of it, because it's not just you're making weird beer just to be kitschy. You're going to be out of it so fast, like not out of it like you made a lot of sales, but it's not going to be long lasting.
Right. You're not attempting to or expecting to hang your hat on as you say, pickle beer or whatever. Right. This is something that you're doing to. Yeah, I get it. I mean, we do it too. I often feel a little like a cheat when I do it, because it seems like a game that's really easy to play.
Maybe, like you pick a stout, throw things in it. Like that's an easy game to play. But like we did make a pickle beer this last year because, long story short, I was in Texas and had Martin House pickle beer, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, who's doing this? And like, this was the thing that they like. They weren't starting their whole brewery on it, just like you guys weren't starting your whole brewery on M43. It was like they just hit the gong, just like you guys did, and like suddenly, oh my God, we're making all this pickle beer. And it's spicy, and it's raspberry, and it's regular, and it's intense. It's an intense.
They have raspberry pickle beer?
Oh my God. Ooh.
Is that real?
So gross. It was like blue raspberry. So it was like that pink, like popsicle blue raspberry. But anyway, whatever.
It was blue raspberry beer.
It was blue, like the beer was like spirulina blue. So pickle juice. So Martin House. Who do they get their pickles from? I don't know. They named the beer that. Anyway, so vinegary, garlicky, like it's crazy. It's a crazy beer. I came home and I was like, I can't drink a pint of this, but there's something about it that's super interesting. So we took a Berliner Weiss, or some sort of, it might not have been a Berliner specifically, but wheat and Pilsner sour.
Sour wheat beer, yeah.
Yeah, that we soured, kettle soured traditionally, because nobody seems to be doing that anymore. I'm like, funny how that's the thing. So, did like a 2-3 day kettle sour on it. Really nice, like straw colored base. Added a tiny bit of dill in the fermenter after it was done fermenting, and like tons of fresh juiced cucumbers.
Right.
And so we like to use fresh fruit, which makes it feel less like a game. It makes it feel like, hey, we're doing something, like we're like cooking something, we're blending something. So, I mean, I have like a Vitamix and a juicer, and we make as many of our own purees as I can. I also know that's going to be super different when we start canning things, because those flavors die fast. So at least we can still do it in the pub. But yeah, we named it Tigress. I'm like, that beer was awesome. So it tasted like cucumber water and like that lemony lactobacillus, and just crisp. And that was our beer, and we're gonna make it again this summer. It was
we make a kettle sour base here that we call Day Mouse. We make it a couple times a year. It doesn't sell very fast, but it's it's easy to make, and we go for it. And every now and again we'll take a portion of it and put whatever shit in it, and we put pickles in it. I'm sorry, not pickles, rather. Sorry, cucumbers in it.
Okay.
In an effort to get the kind of cucumber water vibe. We're thinking about mint, but we're like, before we go off here, let's just see how cucumbers do. And do you know that it ended up tasting, really, it tasted like pickles, grossly, and not in a good way at all.
Juice them next time.
Yeah, it was gross. So we dumped it, but I'm glad that I'm glad that we tried it.
Good, and people got mad when it was gone. They were like, "Where's more Tigress?" I'm like, "Okay, like we'll make it next summer." Like,
okay, let me ask you this.
Yeah,
you make a beer. I'm not saying that this has happened, but if it has, then I'm asking for your experience and actuality, and if not, then I'm asking for your theoretical opinion, right?
Okay.
You make a beer, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't like it really, but you put it out on tap, and by the way, this has happened to me, is why I'm asking the question. You put it out on tap because you know that it is what you expected to make. You just didn't expect it to be something you didn't like so much, for example, right?
Mm-hmm. So
you put it out, or you give it, samples of it to whomever is in your tap room, and they like it. And they like it so much, they want you to put it on, and but you put it on. Mm-hmm. And people really like it. But you still have this kind of sort of undergirding of just shame about this beer, and it doesn't sell particularly well, but there's a small cadre of people that really like it, who become angry when it's gone, and there's no way in hell you're going to make it again, right?
Yep.
How do you respond to that? Sorry, that's what I
No, don't be sorry. So I decided that when I opened my business that I would never do that to myself. If I'm not going to drink a pint of it at the Bright Tank, and there's nothing that we can do to make it more delicious,
right?
Done.
So this is then
will not serve it. But in the scenario that you gave me, what I would do is make it again, but make it how I intended to make it great, and be like, here's version 2, and like people will love it. Like I will make it again one more time and make it great.
Right.
Make sure that I love it. Like. And I'm not just me, but like I have other staff try it and stuff like that. Like we talk a lot about flavors. Most of the ideas come from my partner, Kate, who's our chief of operations. We have our chef Tossin, and lots of beer nerds on staff. Like they're like, we have a old snowboard, because Colorado is just full of them. I made into a whiteboard, and I just leave it in the brewery, and they write their beer ideas, flavors on there. And we've been ticking them off. So like they might not love, there have been beers that I will drink a pint of, but the customers would not touch.
Yes, so, that's Pilsner in my brewery. That's
no, your Pilsner's so good. All the brewers are like, thank God, a Pilsner.
Well, and I guess maybe that's a difference in perspective. For me, I can know that a beer is good, right? It's as good as I can make it, right? Yeah. I just don't. Right, it's not for me, and that's really because I think I'm a lot more dogmatic, because I was brought up as a brewer in Europe, where everybody is really dogmatic, or was at the time, right? 20 some years.
Talking about like marshmallow blar to blar beer? Like, are you
not even
get mad about it?
No, cucumber sour, like, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's actually a bad example because that was just categorically terrible. But so, and I think that, so for me, it is less I know that this is a technically good beer and I understand why you all like it, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't sell well and I don't like it, so I don't think I'm going to go for it again, right? Yeah. And I suppose I do that. And of course, we'll go to beers and say, well, it's not perfect, but they really like it. So we're just going to kind of over iterations change it into what we want it to mm-hmm. be. And that's normal. I think most breweries do that. For Guardian and in your career, what is kind of like, do you have brass ring is the wrong word, but do you have I want to get to where we are doing this, or are you just kind of enjoying the journey?
We are in the process of changing our license this year from brew pub to micro brewer, distillery, winery, cidery, that whole deal.
Okay.
And just took in a Wild Goose Gosling machine this past week. So I am not going to be jockeying for shelf space. Like, I am not stupid. Like, we're tiny. I don't desire to do that. I want to feed our pub first, but I want those things to be available. So I'm hoping that like smaller convenience stores around the area pick up our stuff. Like, it's, we're your neighbor. Like, might as well support. I'm like, we support, you support. We just live in that kind of area. Right. So Saugatuck, Douglas, Fenville.
Yeah.
Holland. Well, yeah. So what is my brass ring? Honestly, I just want a brewery that brings in enough income that I'm not, and Kate's not up at night worrying about things, that our staff are supported. They can buy their first house, or like, always have food for their families. Like, God, the stories I've heard, they have a place to live that's not in their parents' house. That would be amazing. Like, just stuff like that. Like, we're not looking to become like the New Glarus of Michigan. We're not looking to do only production. Like, food's still a really big piece of what we do. I think community is the piece, like just helping, not create, because the craft beer culture is already here, but help like maneuver it into a place where more people feel welcome through enjoying flavors of beverages, whether they're NA or all the alcohols that we have, or food, or, we just want to be a place where you can just hang out and relax. And like I said, I just need to make enough money for these things to happen. Maybe a vacation more than every 4 years. Like, that's,
I haven't gotten there yet.
Maybe I'll get paid. Like, I've still never been paid a dime. I'm like, this is so fun. But, little things like that. And like, I'm not even looking to like, Jeff Bezos, this thing where like, just cut me the largest check possible. Like, I want to make sure that we're building something that is wanted and sustainable, and heck, maybe employee owned, because I don't have kids. So.
Right on. Yeah. I think there's been always this, and this is something that, I talk to, friends that I have I'm not active in the guild. I haven't been for a long time. Mm-hmm. One of the reasons why is because there is such a dichotomy of need between production style. Well, such a dichotomy of business, and so many differences between production facilities. I mean, we run a successful pub, and my wife and I are constantly volunteering in the community, and we support our community, and we're capable of doing so because the brewery generates so much revenue. Mm-hmm. So not only of our time, but of our capital. And that's crucial to us. And so there are similarities, of course, right, in that regard. But in terms of the needs of the actual business moving forward, there's such a huge split and really a chasm between mm-hmm. pub brewing, which I did for a really long time, and production brewing. And also the difference between, and I'm just being frank with you here, the difference between folks that are kind of new to the industry and have mm-hmm. a lot of dreams and thoughts about what things should be, and particularly folks I've experienced in my 20 some years in the industry who are coming from other disciplines and coming into brewing and kind of have an array of opinions about brewing that go from I'm going to teach these hippies how to do business to, whatever. And it's, for me, I just don't. I mean, I don't see a lot of. I see a lot of similarity in a lot of the people there. There's no doubt about that.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference in need and the volume of the voice coming from production, and the difference in need and the volume of the voice coming from the smaller pubs and startups,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot to handle. So, how do you see that? If so, what does it look like to you? And if not, then what does that look like to you?
Well, coming from Colorado's guild, I think this one looks pretty similar. So Colorado, I mean, had a split because of the AB InBev buying Breck and stuff like that, and a huge fracture in the guild. They went through this in a more major way, and I just keep talking to the guild you don't want this to happen. We can plan for this. So we just met in Lansing a couple days ago to look at the new Lansing office, which is pretty amazing for us to have a presence in our capital as a guild. It's like we just put on our big kid pants for the first time in 25 years as a guild. It's exciting. So most of the planning that we do is for smaller breweries, but the bigger breweries sometimes just yell louder. And so I see, being someone who's only been in the Michigan Guild for 4 years, 5 years now, and then been on the board for 3 years, I've been trying to catch up on all that history that you're talking about. So kind of all the things. There are so few pubs in the state. I feel like if anyone needs a lifeline and a hand, I would love to see a brew pub committee. I would think that would be really good for them, band together, because it's just different. And then from there, have groups of folks that can get together and just share ideas for small, medium, and large breweries, all production, but totally different size production. We will be doing technically production this year, but my production's nowhere near where your production is, as far as volume size. So you have things to share through history that could be helpful for places like mine that are smaller.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm right now, I see us going into this. It's not factions or fractioning of the guild by any means, but it's almost like interest groups and mentoring, and it's cool to kind of see this corner turn. But I don't know what the membership sees, because I've never, I was only on that side for so little of a bit of time. And, I don't believe in sitting on the board forever, just so you know, too. So I will quickly be on the, the membership side in the next few years.
Right.
With my thought. So we're trying to clarify that message so that everybody can see it.
Right.
This is what's going on. This is what we've done. And it's all for smaller breweries. The bigger breweries just end up, benefiting from it. And they have a lot more people that attend the conference. So I know it looks like they have more presence. I don't know what small breweries can do about that. Maybe we can do scholarships or something. But there's definitely ways that we can, I think, share across the board a little bit more financially that way to get more people to come, so the visibility looks different. But I understand what you're saying. They can send 10, 20 people to the conference. I'm whoa. Whereas hey, the two of us or one of us, because it's free with our membership.
Right. Well, and I mean, with regard to the production, we're as big as most anybody, but 3 or 4 breweries here in the state. And I think we don't. Right. We'll send John might go, or, one of our sales reps might go because they're interested to network. And I've never really have gotten anything out of networking at guild functions. Right. What my thought has always been about the guild, and I've talked about this for 20 years now, is, can we weave? It's fantastic that we have political action. We've had a very expensive political advocate at the Capitol, for a lobbyist, essentially, for many, 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 many years. Mm-hmm. Now we have July is craft beer month. I mean, we've gone there. We've stopped some taxes from being raised on brewers in conjunction with federal actions. But I have always gotten the the feeling that the guild is, has been owner centric, which is good, I suppose, and not brewer centric. And so, I don't have any problem with folks coming into the guild who are not brewers, of course, or aren't even affiliated with a brewery. But I do think that the more the guild does that, the less they're able to focus on some really important issues that would make Michigan a better beer state, and education is the main one. And I'm not petitioning you, by the way. I've talked to everybody I know about it.
I agree.
Right.
Something that I am just bent on bringing from the Colorado Guild is to make it more brewer and employee centric. And so the first piece that I brought to Michigan was Pint Day, or Pint Month, I guess we do, but Colorado does Colorado Pint Day. And we're doing, those pint glasses, the really cool ones that are for sale during Beer Month. And I was like, why aren't we raising funds for whatever we need to raise funds for, whether it's scholarships or the guild or whatever, I don't know, just, whatever the case may be. Like, that's a piece that I brought in. And I was like, why aren't we doing something like a brewer's belt? Like, why aren't we building that below owner, but running the whole business camaraderie? I want to see that. I want us to be more brewer and employee centric. I'll just say employee centric. I want to see, like, we had servers and kitchen staff at Winterfest with us, and they were like, this is awesome. Like, it makes them love their jobs so much more because they finally can see the community that they're a part of. They can meet the people, they can drink the beer. It's different than just going to buy it at the store. So I'm like, I'd love to see it more just employee centric altogether. And I'm just that's why I started the DEI. I mean, it's not just for diversity, equity, and inclusion, the committee. It's for all the other people.
Yeah.
Like, owners are making all the decisions, and you and I sit in those seats ourselves. But I mean, I'm only 10 years in, you're 20 years in. So I'm like, I'm still bringing a lot of those, like, optimistic, starry-eyed, like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it my way. And it's going to be very community centric. And like I said, just like painfully optimistic, whether it works or not. But
and that doesn't have to be lost. I mean, after 20 years, am I having as much fun brewing as it sounds like you are? Kim, I am not. No, I'm not. But
you should come brew with me someday, Travis.
Maybe I would love to. But I am having as much fun. Camilla, my wife, who runs the pub here, does. She volunteers for Weekend Survival Kits, and that's the charity to which we give the most. It's a local charity. Cool. And Lord, I coach baseball, and we paid and installed for a buddy bench at the elementary school, and so on and so on. I mean, there's 100 things like that we're doing. That to me is where my enjoyment of the job comes from, right? And but I guess the point here is to get there, right? Wherever you're going to go, right? If you are a brewery who is, super hypey, like Old Nation has been, or other breweries still are, and you're doing bottle releases and everybody's paying attention to you, what a great time to talk about what's important to you, whatever that is, right? Yeah. But you have to get there first. And so I guess for me, the focus on an actual technical education for brewers that allows the brewers then who are working for the owners or starting to own their own companies to have that, not just the theoretical technical training, but then on the job training for some time before they get in the market and start inflicting their whimsy on an unsuspecting public is crucial. And we are doing nothing for that. Nothing. And we never have.
Nope.
And I don't have an idea. I'm talking like I have a passionate idea on how to change it, Kim. I don't.
You know what? I'm like, if people paid attention to Fermenta and we were able to implement that in the guild so that more people, not just women or women identified folks, are a part of, I'm trying. Just know that it's been asked by the membership. It's been asked by the committee. It's been asked by me. I'm like, if there's a way that we can financially support and also encourage and mentor folks, oh man, they need an education. So I did consulting for a couple years while Guardian was getting started. And every time I met someone, I'm like, here's the deal. Like, if you're unwilling to go and work at another brewery before this, like, I don't think we're going to do well together, because I'm going to be your brewer. Like, I can give you all this information, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, like, you're going to be really sad.
Right.
And you're going to be in a world of debt, and it's not going to work. So
right. We have to agree on some fundamental principles.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all about the employees right now. Like, the owners, we don't need more people to open breweries right now. I love you all. Like, with the dreams, like, really what we need is to focus on employee education and training and quality of life.
Yes.
And if we can like nail those 3 things down, then it's time to open more breweries, because that's not dealt with.
No.
And that's going to continue to not be dealt with for every restaurant, brewery, distillery, anybody in the service industry that's opening right now is just chipping away at the pie. And like, I'm one that did that too. Like, I mean, I just opened a few years ago. I understand that. But I also did it with this like crazy mission to like try to make a difference. It's just such a long game. I think people aren't necessarily ready or happy about that. It's a
quality of life is I just read an article about this the other day, maybe Sunday or maybe even yesterday, about Shorts doing this what seems a crazy thing about the Bel Air Inn, and converting it into employee housing. That's a step in the right direction. Equitable pay is a step in the right direction. We have the benefit of living in a very small town, which is not a tourist destination. So housing is relatively stable. It's kind of expensive, but there's an apartment complex right across the street from the brewery. It's nice, and it's not expensive relative to a lot of places. You are in an extraordinarily popular tourist destination.
I don't live in the town we own our brewery in. I can't afford it.
Okay, that's what I'm going
to ask. Messed up. I'm like, I can't. So when I vote, we're not even voting for like the place that we spend the most time in. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Okay. And for your employees, this is this is an issue. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So either they are older than me, and this is like their retirement job, so they can't afford to live in town, and they've been here for, they've been well-established townies for a long time. And then, or people are like, they were living with their parents either temporarily or permanently. We had, in the last, almost 4 years that we've been open, we've had one young employee buy a house, and watching her go through that was awful. Like, she probably walked through 50 and put offers in on 30. Like, it was just painful. Like, it's getting outpriced, and it's like way up in Holland. So like, she's still 30 minutes away from the brewery when before she was, anyway, it's so sad. And we're selling the field across from our house or from the brewery. And I'm really hoping that somebody is like, hey, I should put in like tons of like condos here, except the condos that are like affordable.
Right.
Attainable housing with commercial front, like, person listening to this podcast, do it. Like, it will be perfect.
Right.
It's like 200 condos there, no problem. It's a 23-acre piece of land that's really rare in the area now.
Right.
And there's another one like downtown Douglas, like right in the middle where the old what was it? It wasn't I think it was a Steelcase building that they knocked down. So like 11,000 square foot facility, they demoed it, and now the whole lot's just sitting there. So like, everybody's talking about attainable housing here because none of us have staff, but no one around the whole world/US has staff right now.
Right.
Too.
Yeah.
But we all know this is a problem that's been a problem. It's just so easy to ignore. Like, I think it's a big piece of it. Like, if we really want to take care of our staff, we really need to like get in locally, put our time in, and help set the things in place where they can have a successful future here, even if it's just summer staff, or if it's like you're starting your first relationship, family, whatever. Like, I don't have kids, but like, I still think of like Kate and my cat as my family. Like, I'm coming home to my family. So you're like starting your first family, your first house, your first, whether you're renting it or buying it, there's nothing here.
Right. I mean, it's hard, right? If there was an easy answer, it would be answered, of course. But boy, it is. I mean, particularly, honestly, it's something I didn't give a lot of thought to until I read that article, and I have been in this industry for more than 2 decades, right? Mm-hmm. How stupid that I never thought about all of these breweries who are located in destination towns for the reason that they're destination towns, struggling to pay, and of course it's the same with ski resorts and stuff, but I don't spend that kind of money and I don't go on vacation, so I wouldn't know. But, wow, what a struggle. On top of being, queer and female owned and the first and all this kind of stuff. I mean, there are these mundane but grinding and omnipresent issues that you have to deal with in this place too.
Yep.
So what is the answer? Making good beer and getting people in to buy it and pay you money for it, right? This is the answer.
Trimming open hours. All those things. We had to stop serving for 3 lunches out of the week. I hated it, but we don't have cooks. Like,
right.
And I just refuse to grind people into the ground and be like, you're going to work 60 hours a week. I won't do it.
Right.
You're working 40 or less, and that's what it is. And you're getting 2 days off a week, or you're splitting shifts so that there's 2 days worth of days off, because I don't like seeing myself with less time than that if I can swing it. I don't like seeing you with less than 2 days off a week. Like, they need lives. They have like their own families, and some of them have young babies and hobbies. I'm like, you need to go do all those things. This can't be your whole life. It can't.
Right. There's not enough here for you, no matter how much I put in.
I mean, I got enough work for them, but there's not enough.
Enough
to in the place to fill your whole life. No, you have to you're gonna outlast Guardian, so you have to go do the things on your time off that make you joyful in your own life when you're not here, because we know you're just going to be here for a little bit, and even if that little bit's 10 years, it's still a drop in the bucket of your life. We know that. I'm not dumb.
This is a perspective that was present when I was living and working in Europe. That was kind of just taken for granted that is the perspective that everybody has about everybody else, right? Mm-hmm. And it was so eye-opening to me, coming from a rural area here in Michigan, where it is work as hard as you possibly can with no consideration for yourself until you die, right?
That's awful.
But it is the majority of America, right?
Oh.
And what I'm still trying to figure it out, 25 years later, for myself, but more importantly for the people who I employ, which now number in the in the 40s. And these folks have, back here in the brewery, folks start at $17 an hour. The average pay is about 48 grand. And that's about as good as we can do. But the crazy thing to me is just a server that works full time in the restaurant, or just a bartender, right? Just someone on the floor in the restaurant here. Mm-hmm. The restaurant here is such that it would be no problem to work 36 hours a week and make $50,000 a year. No problem, right? Not just
30 hours.
Right. Now, they're not particularly great hours to work, right? They're evenings and weekends.
Yeah.
But we can't find any.
No, you can pay really well. You can give fantastic benefits, unique benefits. You can, you can live in a place where there are places to live and there are not places to live. You can. I don't know where people are. We talk about it all the time and just try to think of it's got to be a dozen things.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, we know that it is, look, have you ever worked in a restaurant? I've never been a server or a bartender. Have you ever done that?
I've been a bartender, but not a server.
I couldn't do that job. I know for sure I couldn't do it. I would be horrible at it. I do not have the patience for it. And the patience with people and their absurdity. And I really think, the more I talk to people that we try and hire here for that job, is it generational? Is it just a sort of an overall zeitgeist? Everybody's fed up with it. I mean, this idea of service that we've put into American culture is not sustainable, right?
No.
I am the Lord of this place when I walk in. Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. I feel like you should treat it like you're going to somebody else's house that's important to you. So maybe it's grandma's house or your best friend's house. You are welcome. Be comfortable, ask for what you need. But past that,
No
Like,
swearing to take
partner
off.
Kate over there is like, she's like, you're a server now. Like being a server now as an owner, like I'll jump in and serve and run stuff and bus
Sure.
and orders and whatever. But I had not had this job before, and there's a power you have as the owner to
Yes.
just like, I own this place. Like
Yeah.
this is what's going on today, and they're like, woo, and they listen.
Right.
And I want them to have that same respect for staff, and like some do, some don't. It's really interesting. I love serving drinks. I'm like, you're serving them a drink. They're happy. It's the food.
Yeah.
The food is a completely different piece, and it brings out an animal in people that is not always pretty.
It's a lot like talking to a home brewer, maybe, isn't it? Right? Where it is, if I did.
No home brewers won't come to me anymore. It's great. But I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Right? I don't know. They don't go.
Well, I've had your M43, and here's how I'd make it if I had a brewery. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's coming, I'm sure. This is your Nessie. This is how I'd make Nessie. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's good. It's good.
It's flattering, but it's awkward.
Right. Well, I'm saying, what they quite often, that's the conversation you have. I mean, your beer is good. It's okay. But, I'm also a brewmaster. I've done at least 40 brews at home. Yeah. And my neighbor loves it.
My wife, it's amazing.
Right.
Can men mansplain things to each other, or is it just talking? Because I feel like most of the guys that would come and talk to me, I'd be like, are you mansplaining the recipe that I made to me?
Well, I think my experience has been, and of course I don't have the same experience as you or anyone else does, and I'm a 6'2", 230-pound ex-football player who went to school in Germany to be a brewer, so I've got a lot of armor, I think.
Right. Yeah.
But my experience has always been that assholes talk to people like assholes, and people who are not assholes don't do that, right?
I can see that.
So yeah, mansplaining, I guess. Yes, it happens. But my perspective is not, why are you mansplaining to me? It is, who hurt you? Why are you such an asshole? I don't know you. Right?
Who hurt you? You're such an angry human.
Right.
We're here to drink.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Thank you. That's it. Maybe that's a good note to end on, right? We're
Perfect.
here to drink, right?
You're here to have a drink, or have somebody make and serve you food you don't have to make and clean up.
Yes.
Yay! Just
be comfortable, right? Relax, man.
Yeah.
Maybe you should be smoking weed instead of drinking beer. This is what I want to tell people.
They'd be hungrier.
You'd be hungrier. Yeah, smoke weed, then come in and don't drink. How's that? That's your rule.
Whatever.
Kim, I hope that you get to Lansing and are able to drop by here. I don't know when I'll be in Saugatuck next, but I'd love to meet you in person. If you're ever around, please stop in. There's always somebody here, even if I'm not, that I'm sure you'd be interested in chatting with.
Awesome. Yeah, it was really great to finally meet you.
You too. Okay, so this one's in the books. Thank you so much, Kim. Everybody, please go to Guardian Brewing, which is located at what particular address in Saugatuck?
So 3657 63rd Street in Saugatuck, right on the corner of 63rd and the Blue Star Highway.
If you are in Saugatuck and not going to this brewery, you are doing a disservice to
yourself. Go to the other exit. We're at the other exit. I'm like, just go.
Kim, thank you so much. I wish you all the best. And, as I say to everybody, and I mean this sincerely, we are a bigger brewery with big resources. If there's anything you need, please, we're in contact with each other. Please don't hesitate to ask. I'm happy to do it. And I'll give you the buzz for the same thing if that's something we need to.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, Kim. Have a good day.
You too.